This is Luke Iorio, and here's this week's Meaningful Moment. This past week, I had the pleasure of sitting down to interview Dr. Bill Crawford, and one of the comments that he made was that he always tries to remind himself, as he does with his clients, that when something comes up, that something triggers you, to step back and consider, is my way of being, meaning how I am showing up and being in relation to what is unfolding, is that way of being something I would recommend or teach to a loved one? Wow. Talk about holding yourself responsible in the moment, huh? Listen, we're all prone to getting triggered by the events and encounters that we have in our lives. In fact, isn't that part of life? Having experiences that push up against our values and comfort zones and seeing what that reveals to or about us. It's those moments that provide great learning, perhaps alongside a healthy dose of frustration or worry or concern. Hey, it happens. But now consider, if someone you love dearly, your spouse or partner, your children, your sister or brother, was triggered by an event, what would your hope be for how they show up and go through it? What would you love to teach them about showing up in those moments? Get a clear picture of the qualities you'd hope that they would exhibit, the perspective they'd be able to maintain, the beliefs that would keep them centered or grounded at those times, the values and strengths that they would illustrate just then. Get a good list of all of those characteristics and beliefs and gifts. And now ask yourself, how well are you exhibiting that way of being when you're triggered? Think of it as a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being completely embodying the way of being that you want to have, 1 being that not a shred of that way of being was coming through for you at that moment. Again, that question of all those characteristics and beliefs and gifts that you listed out are the qualities you would hope others would exhibit during those times of need, those times of being triggered. Consider for yourself on that scale of 1 to 10, how well are you exhibiting that way of being when you are triggered? Now, I can absolutely admit to you that I am not a 10 on that scale. I noticed, something pretty interesting though, as I started to reflect on this. You see, I decided to reflect on when I've been stressed or really taken off track over the course of the past month or two. And then I asked myself that scaling question of 1 to 10, how well I was exhibiting the way of being that I'd want my kids specifically to have at those times. And this is what I noticed, was that when it comes to the big stuff, meaning health and illness challenges that might be going on in the family at a given time, or my wife getting really tired because she's always running in a million directions to support all of us, and other really important things like that. When it comes to that big stuff, or a problem at work, a challenge that's arising at any given time, it's with that type of stuff. I'm usually near an 8, a 9, even a 10 in terms of having the way of being that I would want my kids to have one day. More often, the times that I don't have the way of being that I'd recommend to others, to my loved ones, is ironically around the smaller stuff. The inconveniences or distractions that, in all honesty, are really inconsequential. They're just not a big deal at all. It's, finding those 10 minutes to finally sit down and maybe watch ESPN or the news. And of course, that's when my kids come in the door from wherever it is that they've been. They pour back in the house all excited, and I can't hear the TV anymore. Or wanting to go out to exercise, but we ran out of something, and I've got to run to the grocery store or give my wife time to do so, because otherwise we're going to be eating dinner at 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, or whatever it is. It's just simple, relatively ordinary stuff. But that's when I seem to get agitated or restless or impatient. I grumble and get grumpy until I can put things back in perspective and think, really? Big freaking deal. So you're busy, so you don't get to sit down much today, so you can exercise tomorrow or do something quick at home to just get your blood moving. Honestly, it's nothing more than the moment that I had planned isn't matching what I had expected. Big whoop. And yet, these are the moments that I don't have the way of being that I would teach or recommend to those that I love. These are the moments I realize that I'm not being mindful. You see, in the big moments, those big things, they have my attention. It's easier to be on alert, to be mindful, and bring that exquisite attention to how I'm showing up and being there for whomever it is, or even for myself in that moment. It's the little things where I lose my mindfulness. And ironically, it's the little things that could serve as practice or as exercise for the big moments. But when you're not mindful, it's those little moments that pass you by. And I share this simply because I want my children to share some of the qualities that I listed out in thinking this through. I want my children to be able to have a way of being that is joyful, that's flexible, that's responsible, that's patient, that's attentive, that's present. And when you have those qualities, you also tend to spread more kindness, have more compassion and empathy, express more gratitude, show more smiles, and have more patience in that moment, as well as spread that patience, that calmness that you can bring to the given moment. But the simple insight, question, and reflection I shared was my way of seeing this, my way of answering these questions for myself. And once you can see it, you can begin to be it. So my meaningful moment over this past week was this insight from Dr. Bill Crawford, to have a way of being that you would recommend and teach to your loved ones. That's a moment that's going to be sticking with me quite often for quite some time. Until our next moment together, much love.